I was so bummed at first. Like it's because it's so different.
You start hearing the rumors about, oh, hey, you hear what Cam's gonna do this week? The first thing that comes out of everyone's mouth is, no.
Yeah, so, dude, honestly, when I first got this bike, doing the whole parking lot test, I hadn't been this excited to build up a new bike in a while because it's such a sick looking bike, great brand, it's what I'm going to be on for a while. Running through the whole parking lot test and setting it up, it was just, I was so bummed at first. Like it's because it's so different. Like it is, I've never ridden a high pivot before. I think I had like a Santa Cruz Bullet when I was a kid, but I wouldn't really be able to tell the difference back then. But just manual and stuff, it was so much more different than any other bike that I've ever ridden. But that's kind of the beauty of it. I tried to compare it to skiing versus snowboarding. You know, you have like heavier ski boots, and it's harder to jump around and kind of jib on flat ground than a snowboard is with the softer boots, and it's just a little bit more comfortable on flat grounds. But that's not why you buy a high-end mountain bike. As soon as I got it up to speed, I was like, all right, this is what this thing was made for. This is why a 160 mil travel bike can have performance on a downhill trail like a downhill bike. And I bet I'm probably faster because my last downhill bike was a 26 rear, 27.5 front with 200 mil front and rear. But it honestly performs as good, if not better. And it's 160 rear, 180 up front, and I got 27.5 wheels front and back now. But with the mullet and 29 front and rear, like it's pretty incredible. Dude, I guess it's the kind of thing that you got to try it. You can't just try it in the parking lot. I'm blown away, and I'm falling more and more in love with this bike every time I ride it. This thing is so tiny. Kind of just mounted everywhere. You don't have to be held down to whatever mounts they make. So I just put 2 pieces of tape there. It sits right there, and then that's it. All the YouTubers and stuff that the chin mount is like the best by far, and even though you look like a kook, they're like, "I'm still running because it's the best mount," you know. But yeah, but this way you don't have to have a giant chin mount, you know.
Yeah,
it's epic. I gotta check my tire pressure. I just put new tires on because we're going to Utah, and I put on some DH beads for hitting some big stuff. But I probably still have 60 psi in them from seeding them, so I gotta lower the psi. The whole point of a high pivot is that it gets longer since it's higher. Like a rock hits it, it kicks back, so you get better traction. It's better over bumps, but then also when you're flipping, you load through the suspension, the bike's getting longer, so it's a little harder to pull. So, but it's not that bad of a thing. It's just different to get used to. And then when you get into the rough stuff with only 160 mil in the back, like it's unbelievable. Like a genius. All right, see you at the bottom, bro.
See you at the bottom.
Crazy how dry it is. A little slow. So this bike comes native in a 2929, and in that format you'd get a 64.5 degree head angle, and then with the flip chip in the high position be 65. The chainstay actually gets shorter due to the nature of the high pivot with the high and low, and in the high position right now, which I have it with a 27.5 wheel, it is a 421 chainstay, but obviously it gets longer as you go through the travel. So the shortest of any high pivot that I've found. And I think that's the bread and butter of this bike. I think that's the best part about it, because everyone's going high pivot, but then they're not really accommodating the bike to make it shorter. It's stuck, you know, before sag, because as it goes through the travel, it's going to get longer. And if it's already super long, it's a little too much bike. So this is the perfect bike for me to have as my first high pivot, and I think the best way to do it. One of the coolest parts about mountain biking right now, and having all these other options and wheel sizes and different forks and like a 180 mil single crown, is the ability to put 27.5 wheels on a 29 bike, run it mullet. I had a 170 mil fork on it with a 29er front wheel, 27.5 back, but then I recently just put a 180 mil Zeb on here, 27.5 front wheel, because that extra 10 mil of travel for dropping off of cliffs and landing flat and doing some of the bigger things is more beneficial than the added grip you'd get and stability of a 29-inch front wheel. So most people, I would think that the mullet is kind of the way to go, but for me, 27.5 front and rear with a bigger fork, and to accommodate the kind of riding that I do. And here it is. Like, this is a pretty unreal bike with the wheels that weren't necessarily meant to be on it, and as close to a downhill bike you can get with 160 mil travel in the rear. I think it's just shy of 30 pounds, like 29 and a half. And one idler pulley will generally last about 3 chain rings. So, I mean, that for most people would be a couple years. The thing I like about it is this is essentially a DH hub. They just have different spacers on the end. So this is the same 150 mil DH hub to keep your wheel stronger. So benefits in other ways why they designed it, but I'm a fan of it for having a stronger wheel. Nowadays, an enduro track is essentially a downhill track, and you're just doing it on a smaller bike so you can pedal up. So to have this be able to cruise through all the gnarly courses in Europe and all the steep stuff in Whistler that you would normally shuttle up on a downhill bike, but then the ability to be able to keep it lively and smooth and poppy with a short rear end was definitely something they went for and achieved. Yeah, I'm hyped. Good brand, good people, great bikes.
First free rider, dude. First free rider on a lot of shit.
What a time to be a mountain biker, JP. What a time.
That is sick.
Nice film, good film.